Hi everyone, it's me, Arielle, and it's Wednesday Warriors, and this week I'm going to be talking about the competitiveness that goes on with people who are struggling with eating disorders and the competition that we often have with ourselves when we're struggling with an eating disorder. I'm just going to talk a little bit about how I stopped measuring how good I was by how sick or how thin I was, and how I was able to give up that desire to be the sickest or the thinnest person, give up that identity, and give up any behaviors that I used. It's sort of a personal slanted question that we're doing this week, and I'm going to talk about how weight stopped mattering to me and defining myself basically outside of the eating disorder. I know that when I do these videos, I'm speaking off the cuff and I like to talk right to you and for you, but today this topic really brings up for me blog posts that I've done over the years. And what I would really prefer to do today is to read you those, because I think they beautifully answer the question given the time frame that I have. And even though it's going to seem like I'm reading to you, at least you can see my expressions while I read you these posts, and hopefully you can get something from it. Let me take a moment here to talk about food. Yes, that's right, food. In the wild ride that is life, some of us seek to find control in food. We use it to make ourselves feel better or worse. We restrict, we binge, we purge, we deprive, we use. Why food? Well, that's the question, isn't it? It's just like anything else. Some people use alcohol, some use drugs, some use exercise, some use video games. Addictions, vices, habits. Whatever they are, whatever you want to call them, they can be self-destructive. It takes time, patience, effort, and desire, but we can learn to coexist with the very things that make us crazy or take us on a downward spiral into pain and emptiness. There were times in my life I fasted for days. There were days when I'd allow myself a mere granola bar to get my body moving for an entire morning, afternoon, and evening. Sometimes, as I went between wanting to recover and wanting to wallow in the disease, I'd eat one meal a day, dinner, which was not nearly enough to satisfy my deprived body and mind. I did not have a good relationship with food. When I taught at the Boys and Girls Club and supervised the kids at lunchtime, I would eat my packed lunch with a dedication I'd never experienced before, and it was rough, because I didn't want to set a bad example for the little girls who were sitting there with me. I wanted to be good and real and helpful. I ate for them. I remember pretending to go out for food on my dinner break when I worked at the mall and coming back with just a Sprite. I remember obvious habits that caused my parents to scream at me, cry for me, and feel helpless. I used to have a lifestyle that made my roommate crazy with worry. I was obsessively worried about eating in public. I would stand near a counter of muffins, deciding for 10 minutes which one I would choose, changing my mind back and forth. I was, in short, a mess. I came to a crossroads. I really wanted to recover, really wanted to be all right. Really, really wanted it. Wasn't just wishing, wasn't just hoping. I was willing to do something about it. I was willing to work, to learn, to try. I got good at just saying no. That's right, no. When I'd feel that familiar grip of anorexia, I'd say no. Figuratively, literally, whatever it took. I was bold with myself, with my disease. I did not take it. When I was feeling low, I'd do something good to pick myself up. I learned to cope without using food. When I felt myself slipping, I'd say, no. I'd push the disorder away, say I didn't want it, and I'd say, no. Sounds simple, and it is, but you can't just go about it half-assed. You have to scream it, mean it, use it like a weapon. You're better than all the crap bringing you down. Remember that and just say no when you feel you're being pulled in the wrong direction. It takes a lot of willpower, more willpower than it takes to starve. I wrote, daily. I used my writing to help me, to save me, to direct me. I stopped using food to control and to deprive. I stopped using food as something mental. I tried to embrace it. It was difficult. I didn't like it. Then I forgot about food. I focused on my eating disorder for what it was without the elements of food. There was so much more to my problems other than food. I mean, come on, food doesn't have the ability to destroy. I learned about myself, sought to love myself, wrote about my pain and my feelings, wrote about my struggles. I began to feel better. I began to stop counting. This was tough, to forget about sizes, forget about calories, forget about a number on a scale. I didn't weigh myself. I had no scale. I did this purposely. It was weird and it was hard. I wanted to weigh myself, but I didn't have a scale. I kept wanting to weigh myself. It went on, but I had no scale. And eventually, I stopped wanting to weigh myself. It didn't matter. An inkling of curiosity wasn't the same as an aching need. You can get to that point where it doesn't matter, but you have to work at it. You have to be strong and not allow yourself to give in. And in time, you will be okay. You won't be a slave to a device that conquers your mood and your sense of well-being. And let me tell you, without a number to dictate your daily mood, you begin to listen to yourself and how you feel without that number. You know yourself as you never knew her before. You feel good. You feel free. You finally begin to see that you feel so good that there is no way you'd ever want to go back to that dark, horrible place you were before. You want out with a passion when before you just wanted out with a desperation. I was eating, and I was trying not to think about it much. It was necessary, but not enjoyable. I was okay with it as long as I didn't think on it too long. I had moments of worry and panic, moments of stress and distaste, but I got through. I just plodded through. Food and I were still not friends, but we were no longer enemies. I trudged on, doing well, but worrying that I might relapse into old ways. I gained weight, but instead of being horrified by the way I looked, I appreciated the curves that were slowly showing themselves. The mirror was, strangely I thought, more of a friend to me when I had put on some pounds than it was when I was sickly thin and longing to be thinner. I felt good, so I looked good. I was learning to love my body. It was fascinating, liberating, and astounding. I felt like a different person. I surrounded myself with the right people. I tried to stop worrying about what others would think. This was a big one. I still have to remind myself not to concern myself with what others think. It's not easy, but it's possible. If I couldn't stop myself from worrying what they might think, I tried at least not to spend too much time on it. As I grew to be happy with myself as a person and as a woman, I found that I was content to cook food and eat it. More than that, I enjoyed cooking, and I enjoyed eating what I'd taken the time to make. It took me a while to get over the shock of this. It remains the same. I like to cook and I like to eat. Yes, you heard me correctly. I like to eat. I eat when I'm hungry. I stop when I'm full. I enjoy letting myself enjoy. So how can someone who suffered from anorexia and had such an unbearable relationship with food come to love it and live with it? Well, I just told you. But words on a page are not actions, and the actions are much harder to accomplish than writing the words. And don't forget that it doesn't happen overnight. It can take years. You have to try it for yourself when you are ready. But I can tell you one thing. It's worth it. When I was a little girl, I wanted to be an actress. During a physical for entry to kindergarten, when asked to cover my right eye and read a chart, I pretended to faint dead away to showcase my dramatic talent. I used to talk to anyone who would listen. I used to dance and sing. I loved everything. Everything. I didn't even know the expression back then, but I can tell you, I thought the world was my oyster. A little later, I thought I'd be a writer, an art teacher, a mother. I had a slew of friends, an eye for clothes and shoes, even in elementary school. And if I knew the answer, then you can be damn sure I raised my hand. I loved school, hated sports. One of my pretty little black flats once flew off my foot and across the field during a game of kickball. And life was mostly good. Whatever came my way, I could cope. I had the self-reliance, the gumption, the eternal optimism and creativity. And then came middle school. Popular and a good student, I was content. Puberty hit and tossed me to the wolves. I was a victim of what has become the classic Mean Girls scenario. Shunned by all, I went home crying every day. My mother tried to console me with explanations of they're jealous or it's not the end of the world. But to me, it didn't matter the reasons, and to me, it was the end of the world. It wasn't a matter of blame. When a year had passed and the bullying stopped as abruptly as it had begun, I forgave eagerly, hopeful for a better future. The why never persisted. All I knew was that for some reason, they had wanted to break me down, show me. They wanted me to feel pain, to be unpopular, unwanted, unloved, forgotten, shunned, snubbed, and alone. Even though they were all nice once, and they were all my friends, they backed each other up and ganged up on me, ignored me, mocked me, wrote hateful notes to me. And the days turned into weeks, and the weeks turned into months, and soon a year of my childhood, and a crucial year at that, was gone, drowned in tears of misery and loneliness. I don't bring this up to act like a victim or to indicate in some preposterous way that these girls ruined my life. I certainly wouldn't want to be held accountable for something I did at age 11 or 12. I write about this experience merely to explain how it changed me, and I take full responsibility. Outgoing changed to reserved. Opinionated became accommodating. Present became hidden. Vivacious became subdued. Filled became starved. I retreated into myself. I became a prisoner of suffering, and suffering became so familiar that I clung to it, used it to cope, used it to keep myself in check. I did it, not the girls. But it became my way of life, my new personality, and sadly, as I remained that way for years to come, it was the Arielle that everyone knew. Even after the bullying had passed and other torments lingered, like my relationship with my father or the punishment I inflicted upon myself in the form of a ripening eating disorder, I was shy, quiet, waiting for others to speak for me, waiting for someone else to take the lead, reserved, unsure. My high school friends saw this girl. My college friends saw this girl. But before this girl existed, there was another girl, the real Arielle, the one waiting inside, the one who was actually born into this world, the vivacious, curly-headed, smiling leader who was ready for the world to be her oyster. Somewhere in my last year of college, along the edges of my recovery from an eating disorder, among my decision to audition for the vagina monologues on a whim and later perform the role I snagged, between the pages of a 90-plus page undergraduate senior thesis I adored and a best friend who cared for me and coaxed me into flesh and blood instead of a shell of a girl, I started to get the real Arielle back. My husband, Rick, never met the shy, reserved version that had been wrapping the authentic Arielle like some flimsy paper for so many years. He met a bold woman with kind words and a flair for writing, a woman who at first glance looked as though she was coming into her own, getting started. But really, she wasn't getting started. She was going back, getting back, the Arielle that got lost. She wasn't reinventing. She was revisiting. Even as I write this, I can be sure that those of you who've met me in the last 5, 6 or so years are sitting there in disbelief that I was ever shy or reserved. Yet, when I tell some of my older friends the things I'm doing, they laugh in shock the opposite way, as if to say, "You, shy little Arielle?" Years ago, when I started making weekly YouTube videos, I never dreamed I'd have over 1,000 subscribers and even more viewers. But what's more, years before that, if you'd have ever suggested to me that in a few years' time I'd be filming motivational speaking videos for thousands to see, I'd have laughed nervously and said, "Never, not me." But little Arielle, the actress with her delightfully staged fainting spell down pat, would have said, "Of course I'd love to speak on YouTube, but why stop there? I want to speak all over the place." When I wrote this post, it just sort of poured out of me, because earlier I'd had to write down some of the things I do, and I realized with a start of satisfaction that the real Arielle is here. She's been here. She's back. I'm a recovery blogger of over 5 years. I'm almost an LMSW. I'm an ANAD eating disorder support group leader and an ANAD resource person, a speaker, president of my graduate school student association, etc., etc., etc. If I keep going, it'll sound more like a resume than a post, but the point is that everyone who's met me in the last few years, who knows me now, they see the real me. Someone told me the other day that I was such a natural leader, and I laughed. But then I thought, why the hell am I laughing? People who knew you 10 years ago would laugh, but you don't have to laugh. This person knows the real you. She never saw the other Arielle. This person I am now, it's not someone new. It's not an evolution. It's who I've been all along. So if you knew me in the dark days, that's what I'm trying to tell you. And if you know me in the bright days, you're lucky. Because here I am. It's me, the real Arielle.